Time to check in with Amanda Lang, a business anchor with BNN Bloomberg and host, of course, of Taking Stock, which you can hear anywhere across the Iheart radio network. So lots of data this week. I guess we can begin at home, Amanda. Canada's inflation rate drops to 2%, lowest it has been since 2021. Couple of questions, as we always begin by asking, what does this mean for the next Bank of Canada cut? A quarter, a half point? And is this the bottom? Is this what they were looking for, and are we now in the clear?
So it's definitely the target, and the bank has a range. It's technically 1 to 3. So 2 is kind of a soft target, but it's definitely the one they've been talking about. So it's very central bank-like that they can't even pause to celebrate. They're already worried about overshooting. So the bank is already kind of musing about, not having moved fast enough. They definitely don't want to cause deflation. And of course, that's really where we turn our attention now. Inflation does seem to be getting under control. That means we have to think, is the economic brakes that were applied to get us here going to cause too much of a slowdown? And we're not quite out of the woods on that. The signs are all good, but it takes 18 months for those first rate hikes to work their way through, which means we've got months and months of the last rate hikes to still work their way through. So the concern now is that we overshoot on the other side.
Okay, and then, of course, we look to the U.S. Fed, and that's always, of course, the big announcement, a half-point cut, which probably surprised a lot of people. I think a lot of people thought it would only be a quarter point. That's significant as well. The question then becomes, does that affect the Bank of Canada's decision?
It definitely. So the Fed finally joining the party makes the bank's life easier because we don't want to get too far in front of the Federal Reserve. It causes trouble for our currency. The Fed has a different mandate than our central bank. Our central bank is really tied to inflation, price pressures in the economy. The U.S. Fed has two mandates, a dual mandate of inflation and full employment. And that's a different kind of way of looking at the world. And so when we saw what was happening recently in the U.S. employment, it did give the Fed a little bit of room to say, look, we do not want to cause, a drop-off in the labor market. And so they went further. 50 basis points was actually not what most people were expecting. It was a surprise, which actually reminded me, Aaron, that central bank moves are most effective when they're a surprise and not telegraphed in advance. That was the old school way, was you had no idea till it happened. And it definitely did take the market by surprise, but in a good way.
I wonder, too, I read a couple of people calling into question the U.S. Fed's decision, saying this is proof that they didn't cut fast enough sooner. You put much credence in that?
I mean, we can all look back and say that. We could say that about our own bank, and they've reflected on it themselves about, when we started to see the price pressures, could they have acted sooner? Now, the thing that was happening, of course, remember, is we were coming out of pandemic, and it was supply chain issues and then a war in Ukraine. And really, we just didn't have any models to say, how is this going to influence inflation long term? So it did catch people off guard. The problem, you can't even look back and say, we'll learn from it next time, because they were such kind of one-off anomalous events that the bank really had to roll with it. I have to say, we should give our central bank full credit. We do have inflation under control. And we should also pause and say, under control doesn't mean reversed, right? So when you saw, 8% inflation at one point, those prices are still embedded in the prices we're paying. They're just not increasing at the same rate, and they are still increasing at 2%. So we're still seeing an affordability issue. Until we see prices decline month after month, it's still going to be a little uncomfortable for a lot of people.
By the way, so if we tie this in, I think I ask you this every time we chat when it comes to interest rates. So given the fact that we're expecting this drop, let's assume it's 50 basis points. It's still not the end of the year. There's more room left for cuts by December. Are we hearing of a change in residential housing markets? Are things beginning to sell? Are buyers now starting to move, or are sellers waiting, hoping rates come down even more?
So the early indications have seemed to be that there's still a wait-and-see approach. And the problem is, as we talked about before, when you get relief on the mortgage side, you actually might see it made up on the price. So it becomes a bit of a wash in the short term. Longer term, if you were a first-time home buyer and you're looking to get into this market, there's not really any reason not to wait until the spring, to move now. What I've been interested in is we haven't seen, because we have this tightness of supply, we haven't seen massive price corrections, right? We have seen prices come down off their crazy, post-pandemic peak, but we haven't seen super softness. And so it's still kind of a seller's market. And so if you're a buyer, yeah, it might be worth it to wait for, whatever, we might get a full percentage point lower between now and next year. And why not wait for that?
Okay. So Amanda, the Bank of Canada, so we'll stay with Tiff Macklin in this particular case, making a speech this morning warning that AI, artificial intelligence technologies, may add to inflationary pressure. And I'm just curious what that means, what you make of that.
Yeah, I was interested to see them kind of going through this intellectual exercise. And the point that he's making, there's a couple of interesting things he's pointing out. One is AI and other technologies, but for sure AI, are big electricity hogs. And so that is inflationary. That will drive the cost of something that we all need higher. And that's really important and I think highly relevant. And then the other point he's making is it will be a cost to implement. So businesses will have to invest in AI, and the profit gains they get should pay off, but there might be a lag. So in the short term, the cost to put it in place might be more than the benefit we get, economically speaking, and that is also inflationary. So it's a really interesting line of thought of how the bank's thinking of that. Maybe that keeps them a little warier about letting that the Bank of Canada rate get too low. Maybe they want to keep a little pressure here.
Just with that in mind. Okay. And then finally, retail sales up in July. It says helped by stronger new car sales. It's funny. These things seem to change from month to month almost, right? Weak car sales and now better car sales. You think this is interest rate related?
I don't really. I mean, what I would say, the retail sales number here echoed the one we saw in the States. It says to me the consumer's not down for the count. We're still spending. We did see our savings rate tick up in this country recently. So that, of course, means we're not spending. It's good for us, but bad for the economy. Maybe we are willing to now go back out and spend on some big ticket items once we get a little relief on the rate side. So that's probably good for the economy. And we do need to see that. We need to see households being willing to spend a little as rates come down so that we don't see any kind of recessionary pressure.
Okay. Amanda, thank you. I should mention for all the people who know that we occasionally talk about Wordle, there was a word this week that you and I discussed before we began our conversation today that we both say is not a word, right?
Butte.
Butte. B-E-A-U-T.
Offensive.
That's not a word.
It was offensive.
Thank you. Thank you. I think
but I did get it in 3, Aaron.
I got it in 4. Nice try. Okay. Amanda, have a great weekend. Thank you.
You too. Bye.